I've just written some new law regarding updates to our Jesuit clone scanners, and I'll just go ahead and read you the law as I just wrote it. This is from, if you go to gabrielchana.com and click on Conspiracy Law Updates, and then go to number 2, the number 2 law, which is International Criminal Law Space Technology, and then go on down to section 41, Jesuit and Jesuit clone scanners. For the purpose of this legal document, a Jesuit is defined as one who willingly and knowingly obeys the true Jesuit leader and the Antichrist Zach Knight even unto death, and who willingly and knowingly subscribes to Jesuit attitudes and philosophy, which includes their conviction that they have the right to use Nukaki and the murder of millions and any and all means to establish the Antichrist Zach Knight as the dictator over all the earth. Before the existence of Zach Knight, the Jesuit order was defined as the Jesuits who followed the leadership of the Black Pope, which included the sponsorship and financing of the Nazi regime in World War II, and the activities described so well in the book, The Secret History of the Jesuits by Edmund Paris. See Jack Chick's publications. Okay, in this law, the Antichrist Zach Knight is defined as the Zach Knight, who Satan resurrected from hell on February 14, 2012, in the middle of a Church of Gail service, and who Jesus Christ calls the Antichrist. Jesus Christ is defined as the man who is God, who came to earth and died on the cross for mankind around 33 AD, and was resurrected from the dead 3 days later. He's also the Jesus Christ who regularly meets with the real Brent Spiner, and has appointed the real Brent Spiner as pastor at Church of Gail. Accelerated growth hormone is defined as the hormone or hormones used by the Jesuit order and their supporters to cause a clone baby or any baby to grow into adulthood at an accelerated rate so that the baby can be an adult within days, weeks, or months. Okay? A clone is defined as a baby created with the genes of an authentic person, and my conspiracy law defines that in other sections, created in order to deceive the public and to promote Jesuit goals and to destroy and or replace the authentic person with a person who sympathizes with Jesuit goals. Okay, we've already determined at the rerun of the Nuremberg war crimes trials that the Jesuit order is guilty of massive war crimes against the human race, including being the instigator and cause of the deaths of billions through the Nazi death camps, concentration camps, wars, Nukakis, and other means, and thus all true and willing and knowing Jesuits deserve the death penalty. A Nukaki is defined as a nuclear bomb that contains Jesuit semen, which can impregnate all women exposed to this semen, and which produces a tidal wave of semen that drowns out its victims and often spreads deadly germs through the infected semen. We will construct a Jesuit scanner that will replace all previous Jesuit scanners used against Jesuits. This Jesuit scanner will be programmed to detect the presence of accelerated growth hormones in persons. Those persons who have accelerated growth hormones in or on their bodies, which has been used to cause that person to grow from infancy to adulthood at an accelerated rate, and who are also willing and knowing Jesuit supporters, must be arrested as war criminals. To determine who these persons are, we will use a Jesuit scanner which will detect for the presence of accelerated growth hormones in persons. All persons who harbor accelerated growth hormones on or within their bodies will then be scanned again to determine if they are willing and knowing Jesuit supporters using mind and emotion reading technology. All persons who harbor accelerated growth hormones and who are also willing and knowing Jesuit supporters, as defined by this document, will be executed at once by the Jesuit scanner. These are dangerous war criminals who must be executed to preserve freedom of religion and conscience in the world. Also, those persons who just meet the single criteria of being a willing and knowing Jesuit supporter, even if they do not harbor accelerated growth hormones on or in their person, will also be executed by the Jesuit scanner. We needed to update the scanners because Jesuits have flooded the world with dangerous, tricky, and deceptive Jesuit clones who threaten freedom of religion and conscience in the world. These dangerous deceivers must be executed so that true love and freedom may flourish. It matters not whether these war criminals have money or fame. Would we keep Adolf Hitler alive just because he was rich or famous? Those who program these Jesuit scanners must not be Jesuits and must all work under the supervision of our nanotechnology research team and those under their authority. Anyone who willingly and knowingly programs these scanners to violate these laws in this Section 41 or the principles of conspiracy law, that's Section 41 of International Criminal Law, Space Technology, will be given the death penalty as a Jesuit conspirator. Gail realizes that in order to use these scanners, we're going to need the cooperation of all conspiracy law honoring nations. Those nations that refuse to enforce these Jesuit scanner laws will be listed as terrorist nations on Vladimir Putin and the Church of Gail website, and at the Gabriel Chana Fox News channel. If after much prayer and after attempts at negotiation have failed, those nations that refuse to honor these laws in this Section 41 of ICLST, Space Technology, will be treated as terrorist nations. I will have a link for these laws underneath this video. As a terrorist nation will be given a deadline to enforce these laws, and if they fail to meet this deadline, we will take whatever measures are necessary to ensure that we can use these Jesuit scanners in their territory, and those who willingly and knowingly try to get in our way will be executed. If execution is not advisable due to something like a hostage situation, we will go to prayer before God and ask for wisdom. But by no means will the guilty nations go unpunished. The Jesuit order is a spear in Jesus Christ's side, and he will help us in this matter. If we are stuck, we will form prayer bands at Church of Gail and pray and ask Jesus for guidance so that we can restore true love and freedom into this world and defeat the Jesuit cancer. As to complaints that these laws are unjust, which the Jesuits will flood anywhere and everywhere they can, if you are not a Jesuit, as defined by this document, you have nothing to fear. All good people must agree that those who meet the definition of Jesuit as defined by this document certainly deserve the death penalty. So if what I claim about the Jesuits is not true, and the Jesuits are a benign organization and not the Jesuit order that I've described in this document, no executions will take place. The Jesuits who are executed are not necessarily the Jesuit order of the Roman Catholic Church, but are those who willingly and knowingly honor the true Jesuit leader, Zach Knight. However, if my definition of the Jesuit order is correct, and the organization is as I described them in this document, they will need to fear for their lives because we cannot allow such terrorists to live. So if you are not a Jesuit murderer at heart, you can sleep soundly at night. I have prayed much over these laws, that they would be completely just, so that only the truly guilty are punished. And as to those who say that the Bible says, thou shalt not kill, that means thou shalt not murder. The Bible also states that those who are murderers must be executed, and all true Jesuits are murderers at heart. And according to the Bible, a murderer must be executed. So, I've read the laws really quick, but that is a summary of the new laws that you can get them at my website, www.gabrielchana.com, the opening page. Click on the link for conspiracy law updates. It'll take you right down to the section. Then click on number 2, and then go, which is the second law. Then go, that's the space laws, ICLST, International Criminal Law, Space Technology. That's because we're going to be using space technology. And I apologize that I read this so quickly, but I wanted to make sure I didn't make the video overly long. But I went for my walk today, and these laws just came to me, and they're brilliant. I think they came straight from God. And in my Bible readings today, Jesus was talking about how people who are rebellious against God's laws, like those who claim that Aaron had no right to the priesthood and that everybody should be a priest, God had those people executed. And God may seem really harsh, but a loving God would never execute somebody unless they were like a cancer that was spreading filth and disgrace and misery and suffering. So the Jesuit order is a cancer on planet Earth, okay? These people, they are sly fanatics who will stop at nothing in order to accomplish their goals. The only way to stop them, unfortunately, is to execute them. I've had over 20 years experience in dealing with them. And okay, so and it just occurred to me that one of their biggest weapons right now is the Jesuit clone. Like, I hear that Brent Spiner and his clone are duking it out in court, and that the Brent Spiner clone is claiming that he is the famous Brent Spiner who became, who was Lieutenant Commander Data of Star Trek: The Next Generation, and that the real Brent Spiner is the fraud, and therefore he's saying that the real Brent Spiner should be executed for being a fraud and for committing all the murders that the Jesuits have committed over the past 20 years. And, it's getting to the point of ridiculousness. So I thought, I know a really easy way to get this settled once and for all. Just write these laws. Whoever's got accelerated growth hormone in them is obviously a Jesuit clone, okay? Because nobody else would need that. The Jesuits would only use that on their clones. So that's one quick way to find them, okay? Then they're going to say, oh, but we're a benign organization. All we have to do is my memory reads on you, and we can determine who's benign, and lie detection and all sorts of stuff. They are not a benign organization. They're very deadly. They've already killed billions with Nukaki, okay? Now, if I'm a crazy lunatic woman and everything I say is wrong, then you can just have yourself a laughing party and just laugh at these crazy laws, and you don't need to worry about it and get all hyped up about it, because obviously nobody's going to listen to me, right? But if I'm right, and everything I say about you is true, they're going to have a nervous breakdown. And this is how we're going to be able to tell whether I'm crazy or not. Because if I'm truly crazy, Jesuit, who is going to listen to me? So you don't need to worry. You can go have yourself a laughing party. But if I'm not crazy, and if these laws could be a problem for you, well, that will explain why we might get some objections.